All right, so we're going to talk about content promotions for BiblioWeb libraries. And this deck is kind of like a basic understanding plus then lots of examples and best practices. Because now that you have moved pretty far along in web, you have cards, and we want to start leveraging those cards and building more cards for content so that we can help influence what our patrons see in the catalog. So, what is promos? How does it work? Well, how does it tie into card creation? Then I have a section about the metadata and then some best practices. So, hopefully, all this makes sense at the end. So, what exactly is this thing called content promotions? The long story short is the web content that you make, the cards that you create, we want to extend the reach of those by promoting them in the catalog because we know that patrons oftentimes just go right to the catalog. They hear a book on NPR, they go place a hold. They are in a book club, they go place a hold. And you do all this work on the website. And how many times have you all heard a patron say, I didn't know you did that? Like, a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, like, hopefully, this is going to help with that. So, basically, the cards that you create in web have metadata associated with them. And by metadata, it could be taxonomies, it could be some additional metadata that we add. And we can leverage that metadata to basically match with whatever a user is searching. So, this example on the right that says learn Spanish, so you have a Spanish book, but then you can see the online resource card for Mango languages. So that's the goal of promos is what are patrons looking for in the catalog? What content could we serve up to them they might not know we had, or that would really, pique their interest? Something that we're currently previewing too as part of content promotions is the ability to feature events on the bid page itself. So Chicago's got this in preview. Back in June, they had an author coming. And if you happen to go to the author's bid page, you would see the upcoming event. So that's really cool. Something else that we're testing with Chicago right now is the ability to showcase even more web content on the bid pages. In case you don't know what a bid page is, because I forgot we haven't done your core training yet, a bid page or the title record page is this page where patrons can see the formats, they can read about the author, they can place copies on hold. That's what I mean by bid page. On the bid page, we're also thinking about ways that we can showcase content like blog posts or other related events. Just again, try and help patrons see all of the cool stuff that you do. Now, I mentioned this word metadata. So, what content promotions does is use the user context, like what did they search for in the catalog, with some of the context that we can provide on the back end to help influence what's going to display. So, one piece of metadata we use are the search terms. What did somebody look for in the catalog? In the catalog, did they pick a particular search type, like author or keyword or title? Then we also have the metadata from the search results themselves. If it's a bunch of kids' books, well, then maybe we should lift up content that is for kids. And then the filters that folks apply. There's filters on the left-hand side of BiblioCore like audience, format, genre, topic. That also gives us additional metadata and contextual context. And a user search context does matter because you could see different results. On the left is a subject search for genealogy, and the personalized promotions card, content promotions card, is genealogy online resources. On the right hand side is also a subject search for genealogy, but the format filter of book was applied, and now we see a staff list about genealogy, but more focused on books. So your search results will change depending on what the patron is searching for. So the long story short is if you create a BiblioWeb card, that card can appear in content promotions. If you never make a card for something, that card can never show up in content promotions. So this is where you get to start thinking about your content strategy. So eventually, soon in like a couple weeks, we're going to do some staff training on the catalog where staff can start to make list cards. Those are really easy to get show up in the catalog. But one of the things y'all can start thinking about now is, are there online resource cards we want to put some time into? Are there events that we might want to do this for? What cards do we want to promote? This does require a little bit of page builder access or BiblioWeb permission access, I should say. Lib admins are the folks who have all the power. They can do all the things I'm going to talk about today. Folks who have the more limited access of editor and super editor can add what we call the content timeliness to cards. Because with personalized promotions, we want to make sure the cards show up when they're actually relevant. It would make sense around Halloween to promote more Halloween content, right? So you would apply content timeliness to that. But if we really want to think about influencing the cards by adding extra metadata, that'll be folks who have the lib admin permissions. Still really important for people who are editors and super editors to use content timeliness correctly. So we'll go through what that looks like. So all these words, we'll take time defining them. So how content promotions work. Content promotions is really this idea of creating relationships between the content, your Biblio web cards, the collections, so what's in your catalog, and then your users. So we have that context we talked about. There's also something called the metadata mapping. What we use are the taxonomies of audience and related format. We've talked about what it could look like in the future to map genre and related topic or the topic taxonomy. We're not there yet. More of a high level like discussion, but we do use audience and related format. So for that reason, when you are building cards, it is really important to apply audience and related format if it's applicable to the card. We also have the metadata from the content that you are promoting. So if you end up making a staff list and a staff list showcases titles in the collection, we have a lot of metadata there. We have the authors, we have the formats, we have all their subject headings. If you start to blog about something and you use the feature in the blog to add a title or embed a list, now we have more metadata. And then we have the card metadata, which is what I'm going to spend the most amount of time talking about because there may be scenarios where, again, you want to influence a card to show up. Like an online resource card for genealogy, you're going to want to like have that card show up as somebody types in genealogy or family history, things like that. Content promotions and Biblio web cards. So what is a card? For a quick recap, it is the representation of content, and you can build cards to showcase content from web, like a blog or a news post, from core, Biblio events, and even outside links, which is the custom card. And you can use these cards to make those dynamic and curated content feeds on Biblio web pages. And then you made the cards in web, we have the metadata, they show up in relevant catalog searches. And some of you should definitely be familiar with the card components. All cards have an image, the content type. So is it a blog? Is it a list? Is it an event? They have a title, a description, and then the taxonomies. And again, audience and related format is what we're really going to leverage for content promotions. So if you're like, oh goodness, this is a lot to remember, when should you just generally add taxonomies to cards? If it's a blog, pretty much should always want to apply an audience. Maybe you apply a related format, but it depends on the blog. If you're blogging about artificial intelligence, maybe it doesn't relate necessarily to a format in your collection. Genres, if it relates to books and movies, topic, if it's nonfiction, so the AI blog, could have the taxonomy of tech or computers. So I basically just kind of built this table to help give you just like a quick overview of like, am I doing this right? Am I doing, what I think is going to work for taxonomies? So hopefully this helps. You'll see a lot of the answers are depends, and it really does just depends on the context of the content. Ooh, lots of words with con in it today. So let's do some demos and examples because that I think is the best way to see promos in action. So let's see if my examples are still live. This is Harris County. Just did a basic keyword search for genealogy. And here is a card, the online resource for Ancestry Library Edition. Awesome. At Chicago, yes, good. They have their craft blog still. At Chicago, I had just done a keyword search for crafts, got a couple of books about crafts, and then you see this blog post all about getting crafty. I'm going to swap this one to a subject so we can compare what the search results give us. So here we've got Christmas book. I guess this might be a crafty book. Here we have a blog post for National Craft Month. So it can change again depending on whatever a user searches here or if they apply extra filters here. We could try it again. Let's go back to keyword crafts and let's set it to book and let's see if it changes. It goes back to the blog post. Chicago's done quite a bit of effort in getting their cards to show up, which is why I'm kind of spending a bit of time on Chicago. So they're one to look at for sure. Harris County has seemed to put in a lot of work for their online resources. So they're a good one to look at too. At Edmonton, I did a keyword search for Barbie. Got the Barbie movie. They have a video game. Edmonton has a podcast. And so this is a custom card and it's all about Barbie. So that's a good match. But maybe if I change this to kids, let's see if what it changes to. I'm going to set the audience to children. Let's see what we get. 13 reasons to get a library card. So they don't have any kid Barbie content, but that's okay. So it can change depending on what someone's searching for. Arapahoe Libraries, here is a subject search for magic. We've got Harry Potter, Harry Potter. Then we have a staff list, cozy fantasy. So, we have the metadata from the subject search of magic. Then most of these titles on this staff list are going to have magic as a subject heading. So staff lists are pretty easy to get to show up here because they have so much metadata. I did a series search for Outlander. So we've got the Diana Gabaldon books and it's missing. When I did this search a couple days ago, it was a list of like adult fantasy. Bummer. All right, that's fine. Let's try a keyword search for Outlander and see what we get. Outlander the show. We're getting no results here. Interesting. Let's see if this one works at Herrick. It does. Okay. So this is an author search for Eric Jerome Dickey. Got 2 titles, and then we have a staff list all about steamy and intricately plotted books. So that's a couple of examples of how personalized promotions work. I've thrown a lot of info at you already. Does anybody have any questions, or do you want to throw some different searches out just to see what it does? No? Okay.
Trying to think of a good
Oh,
keyword, but nothing's coming to mind.
that's okay. We could do something like kittens. Let's see if we get any cat books. Ooh, okay. Well, that was a random one. This is kind of cool. So in some cases, there's no way that you all can create content for every search a patron is going to do. So this library has no kitten content. So here what we see is what's called library recommended content. So if there is an instance where personalized promotions cannot come up with a match, the library can select cards to show up instead. So often libraries will pick like 5 to 10 cards just to kind of promote, and they'll swap them out on a monthly basis. And yeah, so here they're promoting Hoopla because the Snow White movie came out a couple months ago. All right, so cool. All right, slideshow time. Let's do it. Card creation and content promotions. Some of you, I think, are familiar with the card creation interface. On the left is where you put in the image, the card title, the description. Yes, scroll a little bit farther down. You'll see the taxonomy is audience and related format are key for this. And then you probably have noticed the timeliness options. So there's a timeliness where you can set cards timeliness, and then there's the card expiration, like, does this card live forever? And then if you have the higher lib admin permissions, you might have even noticed the personalized promotions field. The personalized promotions field, which eventually will be renamed to content promotions, is where we, as marketers or librarian people or folks who know we want to promote something, can influence the cards. First, let's talk about content timeliness. Standard is the default. On any card you create, standard's the default. Standard timeliness means that a card's content relevancy decreases over time, but doesn't necessarily have a specific end date. A good example of this is, let's say you do monthly staff picks. So in July, your July staff picks card, super relevant. A little less in August, a little less in September, definitely less in October, November, December. But somebody could look at that staff pick list next year and still find it helpful. So it's less relevant over time. So that's what standard means. There's also evergreen. This is applicable to content that could be useful or handy or relevant at any time. And by any time, I literally mean anytime. Now, 2 weeks from now, 8 months from now, 2 years in the future. A lot of libraries are leveraging Evergreen for their online resource cards because you're probably going to have those online resources for a long time. There's not so much timeliness associated with them because tomorrow someone could want to start a small business and they need your business resource. Next week they could, 2 years from now they could. So evergreen means that it could be useful at any time. You could also think about this in terms of some genre content like our best in haunted house fiction. Like, it could be evergreen, but you may also choose to use timely from. So let's go back to our haunted house fiction list. I might love haunted house fiction at any time because I love to read gothic fiction all year. But maybe you would like to have that content promoted around spooky season, like September, October. So that's where the timely from comes into play. What's cool about the timely from is there's a repeats annually. So if you are building seasonal content, or even if it's not necessarily seasonal content, but like, every fall there's like elections like that, or like every spring people graduate. So content timeliness using the timely from option allows you to pick a day that the content dates, I should say, that the content is relevant. And if it repeats annually, you just check the checkbox. And then next year at the same time, it'll update. So here's like a real quick recap, all the info I just talked about on one page. I've also just put in a couple more examples to help you think about standard, evergreen, and the timely from content. Now, the other option is card expiry. You'll see card does not expire, unpublished card after expiry date, and delete card after expiry date. Events cards are slightly different because, like, we generally expire those because we know when the event is going to end. So don't panic if you don't see one of these radio buttons. It could just be that, you're looking at an event card and it has slightly different expiration options. Now, card does not expire is the default, which means the card could at any time be used for content promotion. So evergreen cards, the card does not expire. Standard cards, you might set to card does not expire, but let's say you maybe only want to keep staff list active for 5 years. Maybe then you would choose to have a card like that expire at some point. So you just kind of got to think through like the longevity of your content. But card does not expire is meant to be really used for truly evergreen content or content that just has like high appeal factors, like Kids are always looking for funny middle grade books, right? It's always an ask. Another option is unpublished card after expiry date. This is helpful if the card has a specific expiration, but you might need to use the card again in the future. When you select unpublished card after expiry date, you'll see a calendar. You pick your day. Some use cases for this one could be like an opening on the friends board. You have them, maybe not all the time, but maybe a handful of times a year. So whenever the opening closes, you don't need the card visible anymore. I've seen like annual library contests where, they don't want the card to show up all the time, just when that contest is happening. So if it's anything kind of promotional, you might choose to unpublish the card because it has that set end date. And then there is delete card after expiry date. This is very helpful if it truly is a card that has a limited or time sensitive use. One example I came across a couple weeks ago was a library had an art exhibit in their library, like now through whatever day it was. So then the day after the exhibit closed, they deleted the card because that exhibit was like a one time thing. It's never going to happen again. Now, what about seasonal content? I don't usually recommend deleting seasonal content because you have the timeliness options instead. Um, so yeah, you just kind of got to think about it. Any questions about that, or how are y'all doing so far? So
Yes.
excellent. Okay, so now let's get into the weeds. Catalog title and catalog metadata. Oops, PowerPoint, don't freeze. Phew. Okay, so we are actively working on getting this up and running. In June, we made sure that the catalog title URL is working, which is great. The other metadata fields that you see below, call number, subject heading, genre heading, author, we were aiming for the end of Q2, but it looks like it's going to be the end of Q3 that this is going to be released. However, I recommend starting to add the metadata here anyways, because that's about when y'all are going to be launching, and then you've already done the work and great. So we're just going to go ahead and pretend like it already exists. The catalog title and catalog metadata options are going to let you influence or help indicate how a card is going to connect to titles in your collection. So we have the 5 different metadata types that I mentioned: catalog title, call number, subject heading, genre heading, and author. The catalog metadata section, call number, subject heading, genre heading, and author are really going to kind of need you to have a bit of, not necessarily advanced search skills, but kind of this idea of, one, I need to know what patrons are searching for. Two, I need to think through what items are in my collection that either we have a lot of, like the genre heading here, you can see romance fiction. Like imagine you make a blog about romantic heroes and heroines. Romance fiction is a great metadata to apply because you have thousands of titles, right? So it's kind of knowing what's in your collection, knowing the patron context to help leverage these. Now, all the cards that you create, some allow you to add certain metadata and some don't. For example, a list card does not allow you to associate particular catalog titles with it. The reason is, if your staff is making a list and they want to make sure that the list, would show up in a search for somebody looking for red, white, and royal blue, red, white, and royal blue should just be put on the list. So that's kind of one of the ones that has tripped up libraries in the past. And that's the example I just gave. So let's talk about the catalog title URL. Um, so if there was ever a reason why you might want to associate a particular catalog title URL with a card, you would look up the title in your collection, copy the URL, you would paste it into the promos and click on add, and you should be set. Now, a good example of this could be something like an author event. Maybe Lucy Foley is coming to your library to promote their newest book. And so when you build the event description, you link to her book, but she's also written loads of other books. So maybe you want to, associate, her other titles with that event card. That might be an example for that. Now, call number is also really interesting. What you do for a call number is you look up a book in the collection and then you copy and paste the call number, and it has the very similar interface on this screen where you just paste it in. Call number I have found a little trickier to leverage because I have found for me when I'm demoing this to libraries or, I have a library live on this testing for me some different scenarios. I have found it easier to do subject headings or to do genre headings, but call number is an option. Speaking of subject headings and genre headings, I generally find these more helpful because I find that there's simply just more titles. There are more titles about siblings, there are more titles about family, there are more titles that may include LGBTQ characters, right? It's a little more broad sometimes than a call number might be. But it'll come down again to the card, the context, like who are we trying to promote it to? What could be more beneficial? And then we have author. Same idea, do a search for the author in the catalog, copy paste into the card creation, and then you can add the author. This could be useful if trying to give a good example off the top of my head on this Friday afternoon. This could be helpful if you maybe have oh, I know. Here's a good example. Let's say that you want to promote an online resource all about learning to write. And you might choose to associate an author like Stephen King or James Patterson because like people love to read their stuff. And then if people are looking for someone like James Patterson, which they often do in the catalog, you could be serving up content that they didn't know you had. And so it could be like a happy instance like, oh, I love Stephen King. Oh, maybe I want to be a writer like Stephen King. Ooh, look, the library has this writing course. So you could think about it that way. Questions about those?
How, and we might have already answered this, so sorry, how, like, in general keywords, how strict are they, or how, let's say I wanted to do, learn Spanish, but I typed in, or, sorry, it's Friday and my brain is not working. Because I'm mostly just thinking like related words that aren't
Yes,
precise words.
yes, I got you. Okay, we're getting to it. So, in some cases, you may just end up leveraging what we call the catalog keyword search terms, where you are brainstorming what you think patrons are going to search for in the catalog, and then you want a particular card to show up. So, this Learn Spanish is exactly what you're kind of after. So, when someone types in Learn Spanish in the catalog, you would see this online resource card for Mango languages, but not everybody's going to type Learn Spanish. They could type Learning Spanish, learn how to speak Spanish, learn how to speak a foreign language, learn Spanish fast. There's lots of different variations patrons could use. So, you as a marketer get to figure out all those terms and you can add all of those terms to the catalog keyword search terms. So here, so here I've got it. So Spanish, comma, learn Spanish, Spanish for beginners, etc. So you just put in all your search terms, separate them with a comma. Promos takes about 30 minutes for these to start indexing. So, you could do it in the morning, check after lunch. Yeah, so you can put in multiple keywords and variations. Matching is case insensitive, so you don't have to capitalize proper nouns like Spanish. We also don't make stemming or partial matches, so that's why you saw learn Spanish, learning Spanish. So just think about all those different common variations, and you should be set. Julian, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it sounds like it needs to be pretty precise. So, to your point,
Yes.
learn Spanish versus and learning Spanish, not because I have the word learn in there, it'll be showing up for learned Spanish and learning and will learn. Like it needs to be more precise.
Yep, exactly. You got it. That was like such a good tip. You didn't even plan that. That was literally my next two slides. Way to go.
Perfect.
So you might be thinking too, like, well, what if we have like Rosetta Stone in mega languages? Can I use the same catalog keyword search terms? Totally. And we see this especially with all of the different like genealogy resources and business resources that people have. So libraries will sometimes end up using the same keywords on multiple cards, and that's fine. The other thing with the catalog keyword search terms is this is a powerful tool. So you really want to think through adding catalog keyword search terms. For example, we had a library put in a ticket a couple weeks ago and they were like, I don't understand why, like they were searching like some kid's book and then they kept seeing like Calvin and Hobbes show up or something like that. And they were like, why, if I'm searching like Captain Underpants, do I see Calvin and Hobbes, this Calvin and Hobbes list or whatever? And so we looked at their card, and whoever had made the card had put Captain Underpants as the catalog keyword search term because the person who was making the card was like, I'm just going to throw in all the popular search terms. So it is a strong tool because you can do that, but we really want to think about that patron experience again. Like, here's another example. Let's say that you want to promote Libby, and you could put in like books and new books, but like, what if eventually you want to leverage those other terms for like a new staff pick list that you've created or a different online resource comes on? So I usually kind of recommend, again, really being intentional with the catalog keyword search terms that you add. That's why I like to showcase the Mango languages one so much because catalog keyword search terms for this one, in addition to like learn Spanish or learning Spanish, imagine like putting in keyword searches like Spain or Madrid, because then we're thinking about how could people use this language maybe when they travel, right? So you just want to use catalog keyword search terms if you want to ensure specific content is displayed when users search for those terms. And then you can also set up in Google Analytics a way to look at your catalog keyword search, sorry, your catalog search terms for ideas. So that will be really helpful too. Like, our patrons always in the catalog looking up James Patterson. One, we should make more James Patterson content. Two, let's make sure our lists about James Patterson show up. Or are they looking for Canopy or Clark Gable or whatever? The other scenario we've seen sometimes is, and you'll see this after you launch, sometimes patrons think the search will search everything, but there's a search drop down for catalog, there's a search drop down for website, there's a search drop down for events. So sometimes you'll see unique searches in there. So they might be searching the catalog for finds or Libby or whatever. You could still leverage content promotions, like make a custom card that goes to your FAQs about finds. You could make make that card for Linda. So that's what's cool about the catalog keyword search terms is it does give you a lot of power. I just want you to use it for good. So consider what your popular search terms are. Think about a content promotion plan. And it may also not even be necessary to add catalog keyword search terms because we have so much metadata. You might choose not to add any catalog keyword search terms for list cards because we have a lot of metadata, but you might want to for an online resource card. So here's an example. Let's say you want to promote Canopy to DVD borrowers. DVD is a popular search term, so you could add the search terms of DVDs, movies. Call number would be a good use here too. Um, and then periodically, you would just want to review all of your cards because when you're done with this Canopy promotion, maybe you delete the word DVD or movie. Okay, let's talk about specific cards. Any questions before I talk about these? No? Okay. List cards and content promotions. So, list cards are curated staff lists or staff picks that your staff can create in the catalog. They're meant to curate basically a collection of titles around a theme, a genre, a topic, something trendy. So, here's a staff list called I See Me Gender Identity. So this list does have a lot of metadata associated with it because we have all the authors, we have the format, we have the different subject headings. But here, this library actually did add a couple unique catalog keyword search terms that I liked. They had added pride, siblings, Jazz Jennings. So they were trying to think kind of a little more larger than just the traditional subject headings that were included on this list. You'll even see like friendship is on there. So they are trying to just promote this card to a lot of patrons looking for these subjects. So that's an example of where you might add catalog keyword search terms to a list. There is a different list type called an if you liked list. So we haven't done your training yet, so I'm giving you like a little sneak peek about it. But an if you liked list is basically a read alike list for a particular title. If you liked Mad Men, you would like these movies. If you liked White Horse, you would like these books. So in that case, the anchor title, as we call it, we have all the metadata for that too. So we know to prioritize that title. So you don't have to add White Horse or Mad Men into the catalog keyword search terms. We have the metadata. And we would give these cards a particular relevancy boost because, if somebody types in, Erica Worth, they're going to see this if you liked list because we have the matching metadata. So if you like lists are a really cool part of personalized promotions, and I want to see more libraries build these. So when I do y'all's training, I will talk up the if you liked lists. Now we have event cards too. So what does this look like? When y'all are creating events and you're having your colleagues create those, there is the ability to add a title in the event description. What that does, it gives us that metadata. But you might also end up needing to brainstorm other subject headings, catalog keyword search terms for the event cards. Now, this screenshot I took before we had actually added the different metadata fields. So if I was hosting an event called Bone Detectives, I would actually go into the catalog and look up these detective books and I would borrow their subject headings of like murder, forensics, true crime for the genre, because that would give me a lot more titles. But what you could consider for catalog keyword search terms could be something like NCIS or CSI or um, I don't know, what's the famous guy who helped catch the Golden State Killer? Paul Holes. He's like an author. You could associate his author with this event card. So you just kind of have to start thinking it through. Here's an example where I searched for Legos in the catalog. I could see this event for this Lego club. Here, I just wanted to point this one out. Terms are not case sensitive, so the library did not have to add capital L Lego and lowercase l Lego. Now, this one's kind of interesting too. They did add some unique catalog keyword search terms like book club and book clubs with the hope that this gets some eyes on parents who are probably the ones looking up this in the catalog to see, like, oh, there are other book clubs that the library offers. But I would recommend that you use that sparingly because if you put book club on every card that you made, then we have just diluted the power of the catalog keyword search terms. I mentioned the ability that we're previewing with Chicago to show upcoming events on the bid page. And this is just a screenshot down in the left-hand corner of when you are creating events. You can click on the title button to associate a title with your upcoming event. Okay, online resources. Online resources is one card type that would definitely benefit from y'all adding some metadata to these cards. The reason is online resources are built in BiblioWeb, and when you create an online resource, you put in a title, you put in a description, um, and that's basically it. When you make a card for an online resource, you apply your taxonomies. But we don't have any way to link the online resource with the catalog like a list card would or an event card would. So, online resource cards are usually how I have libraries start getting familiar with personalized promotions because they need help. And like what's nice about these too is they're pretty evergreen. You can set these up and then just see how they go, like genealogy. It's really easy to come up with some evergreen terms to promote a genealogy resource. So here you just create your card for the online resource. And then here, I'm going to update this slide, I think, before I send it to you to show you what it would look like to do subject headings and maybe some call numbers too, just because we're finally getting that functionality out to make this a little more powerful. But it is kind of interesting to see what this library had selected for online resource terms. They had like puzzle, brain health, mental exercise. So it's interesting to see what libraries are kind of testing to get these cards to show up. So usually what I recommend is look at the search terms, look at the subject headings, or brainstorm related ideas so that you can come up with ways to get your cards to show up. Going back to that online resource example for Mango Languages, why do you want to learn it on online? Why do you want to learn a language? Are you traveling? Is English, your second language? So there's loads of ways to really think about what that patron experience is because we want to serve the right content to the right people at the right time. Oops, did my PowerPoint freeze? There it goes. Now, another card type we have are the custom cards, and these just have such limited metadata because you can make a custom card to promote, the local museum that you partner with. That's not in the catalog. We don't have metadata for that. Here's an example where a library did a video. They filmed themselves talking about hidden gems in the collection. How do we promote that? We don't have a lot of metadata. This one's interesting because in the catalog keyword search terms, they put in new books, book club to go, book club kits, and the women. Now, new books make sense because if you're a patron and you type in new books in the catalog, it's likely those titles have holds on them. What a bummer. But now we've served up a piece of content of hidden gems in the collection. You watch the video, you find some stuff that probably doesn't have as much of a hold list on it. Awesome. Book clubs. Book clubs are always looking for new books, something different. So the library was like, okay, if people are looking for book clubs, they might like these hidden gems. They also included variations of what they have branded their book clubs versus like what they think a typical patron would type in. So at this library, they're called Book Club to Go, but a patron in the catalog might type that if they're familiar with it. Otherwise, your standard patron will just type in book clubs or book club kits. Now, the last search term they added here was the women. So, The Women by Chris and Hannah, big bestseller, lots of wait list. So, this library made the decision to, temporarily add the women as a catalog keyword search term because people who like the women probably are tired of the wait list. They might be looking for these hidden gems too. The only gotcha is once the women is like not so popular, remove it from the catalog keyword search term. So that's why I'm saying like there's a lot of power behind this, but you don't want to overuse, the strength of this because what if somebody eventually makes a staff list about read alikes for the women? That would be a much better search result than this librarian's hidden gem video. So you also have to start thinking a little long term about these catalog keyword search terms. And that's basically what I said. I put it on a slide for y'all. So that way you could just catch the slides. Now, here's an example of another custom card. It's a service card. This library is talking about their ebook service. So it makes sense then to associate the catalog keyword search term of ebook for this card. So whenever somebody looks up ebooks in the catalog, they can learn more about how to check out those books. All right. That brings me to blog cards. So, blogging, another type of content, sometimes blogs are going to link to items in your collection. If you are writing a blog about books, you're probably linking those items. But we'll go back to like my AI example. If you write a blog about how to disable facial recognition on your phone or how Chat GPT works or whatever, maybe you don't have as many items in the collection, so you don't have metadata. Then we have to start leveraging catalog keyword search terms. Now, here's an example of a blog post called Booze and Booze Cocktail Companions for Spooky Books. And when I did a subject search for Gothic, it showed up, and I was like, well, this is awesome. They must have leveraged catalog keyword search terms. So I logged into their site and they hadn't. But we had enough metadata that most of the titles they had picked in this blog post had the subject heading of Gothic. So, what I also kind of recommend is as you're creating content, you might publish some cards and then try and search for them in the catalog. Do they show up? Is it unexpected what's showing up? Because that's going to help you decide, like, oh, maybe I need to add some catalog keyword search terms, or this would benefit from me adding a subject heading to it. If the blog doesn't have items linked to it in the blog post itself, then I do recommend adding catalog keyword search terms or a subject. Again, depends on the context of the blog. If the blog is all about like gardening, it might just be easier to add the subject heading of gardening and call it done instead of trying to come up with variations of garden, gardening, vegetable containers, vegetable gardening. That's a lot of lift. That's a lot of work for you all, I should say. So that's why I'm starting to lean more towards suggesting leveraging subject headings and genre headings when possible because it's faster, less work for you, but knowing that you have catalog keyword search terms in your back pocket. So originally, this library had written a blog about helping children cope with holiday stress. Basically, just a blog that was like, step one, like, plan around naps. Step two, make sure kids have time to, walk away and process. So they didn't necessarily have anything to link to in the catalog. So they really leveraged the catalog keyword search terms here. But now, if we kind of peek at these, some of these are actually now subject headings like family gatherings, emotional well being, relaxation techniques. We could leverage the subject headings instead. So, if you all start to blog, and I hope you do, you'll want to make sure that bloggers end up adding titles into the blogs directly because that gives us the metadata. If your library creates blog posts with this, if you liked idea, if you liked Mad Men, Red, White, Royal Blue, um, then you can add what we'll call the anchor title for that into the catalog keyword search term because that helps personalized promotions understand what the anchor title is in a blog. You don't have to do it for lists, just for a blog. Okay, I need another sip of water and we'll keep going. All right, news cards. So, another type of content you have in BiblioWeb are news posts. So, did your library get a grant? Did you add something new to your collection? Did you score a huge author event? Um, what's interesting is when we did testing on content promotions, news cards were actually the least clicked on content type for our libraries. Patrons tended to click more on lists, which makes sense. Then I think it was blog posts, and then I think it was, can't remember if it was online resources or events, but those were basically your top four card types. So news cards, a lot of libraries just tend really not to promote them as much, but there might be some use cases where you want to, like maybe it's a contest. Um, you'll just have to kind of think about what might be more beneficial. Like, does it Is it helpful to promote news posts on your library site? I guess it depends on the news, but this one I just don't see too often. So those are our different content types. And when we were looking at that other library, I showed you an example of library recommended content. So, like I said, you all cannot create content for everything. You just can't. It's impossible. So, if you don't have content, then what happens? Well, we can display library recommended content. And this is optional. You don't have to use it. But if you kind of want to, like, just get content out there, and maybe this is a chance to promote a cool staff pick list or a neat online resource or maybe a news post, you could use library recommended content. So, this is only going to display if we don't have contextual content like we have no metadata, we can't make a match, or if there's no timely content to display. So let's go back to that idea of Halloween. Maybe I searched the library website for kittens. You don't have any kitten content, but we might promote a Halloween post because it's October. If we didn't have a Halloween post, then we would display the library recommended content. So the order that we try to display personalized promotions content is contextual, then if it's timely content, then if it's library recommended content, and then if there's nothing that we can match, we won't show anything. That's pretty rare, unless a library chooses not to use library recommended content. Now you can pick any content to be library recommended content, but I don't really recommend selecting kid content because it's kind of more niche, I would say. Like it could be fun to do like I think I might have an example in this deck of a library who had like picture books for winter and they promoted it in like January, February. That's kind of nice. But generally the people who are searching the catalog are tweens, teens, adults, seniors. So, we want to kind of think about them and what might appeal to them. So, here's a couple of examples of good library recommended content. Staff picks, great example. They're relevant every month. You can swap them out pretty easily. Generally, they appeal to a lot of patrons because you could have fiction on there, nonfiction, different genres, different topics. I've seen some libraries lean into blogs that have a seasonal timeliness element, like this library has a seed library. So they've written a couple of blog posts for each season, and then that gets shared as library recommended content. Oh, good, I did put it in here. Here's that picture books for winter. You could try it, you could see how it goes. The other one that I have on here is niche content, but content that also still has some name recognition or like pop culture vibes to it. This library had nonfiction for fans of Sherlock Holmes and crime fiction. I was like, oh, that's like niche but broad. I just thought that was a very nice choice. So there's a couple of examples for library recommended content. When you are creating your card and you scroll down to the promos interface below the catalog keyword search terms, you'll see the library recommended card start and end date, and that's where you get to set when these cards show up in the catalog. So if we go back to this picture books for winter, they had set the library recommended dates from like January to like the end of February. Or this January 2023 staff picks, you could set it for the month of January. Or this seed blog, you could set it for maybe like March through April, so people can prepare their seed library. So you just have to kind of think through that. So I mentioned there's a particular order that we like to promote content when it comes to content promotions. So number one, if we can make that contextual match, that's our strongest match because we have the metadata. Number two, though, timely content. Number three, library recommended content. Number four, no content. So that's the order we promote. So obviously, again, best matches are contextual content. Now, when it comes to library recommended content, I recommended like 5 to 10 items or cards, we should say. That just kind of means that hopefully your patrons who are in the catalog a lot, like our super users, don't see the same content every time. You want to think about what high value content means to you. Like the Sherlock Holmes one is a really interesting example. There's a lot of value in that particular content. Same thing with the staff picks. I also recommend keeping the time ranges a little shorter, like rotating content every month or so, not setting, the content to be a library recommended card for a year. That's just too long and people are going to see that card. So you want to swap it out. Okay. So I have linked, come on, PowerPoint. Oh my goodness. It appears to be stuck. Okay. Okay, so this is the slide I wanted to show. So when we start to think about content promotions, I have a couple of next steps. Number one, it's time to think about or refine or adjust your content strategy. You've got the bulk of your, got the bulk of your pages created here. My goodness. Let me unhide this slide. We've got the bulk of your pages created. So now it's time to start talking about the content, the cards, what it looks like to continue to get this content for your site. Are there other staff members that might need help or that you want to bring in on this? Definitely take some time to just, peek around other Biblio websites, try some different searches. What are searches that you would do at your library? Like, do you have a favorite author? Go to Chicago site, type it in. What do you see for promotional content? I think we're set on your taxonomy terms, so we should be good there. Um, we're basically ready to start talking about the bibliocore validation and like that sounding like it's going pretty well. So we should be fine there. And then I have turned on content promotions for your site, but we need more cards. We need to add more metadata to the cards for these to start showing up. So that's where we're at with next steps. I have added a link to our promotions documentation in the partner portal. It is very detailed. So if you're like, I really want to dive into like really what we're talking about with the metadata, like we've got it. We've got it all laid out for you. So this is very robust and very helpful. We've also linked troubleshooting tips and tools. One thing I can show you that's really interesting is the debug tool. So let's go to Herrick and let's type in, oh, let's just type in romance and I'm sure we'll get something. Pumpkin spicy romance. Okay, great. So let me log into the catalog here. I'll show you this neat tool called the debugging tool. And if you were ever like in your catalog, oh, that was weird. If you're ever in your catalog and you're searching and you're like, why did that card show up? Like, I didn't expect that. Um, you scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Search Debug Tools. And then when you scroll back up to the promos card, you'll see a link that says Debug Card. And this will tell us like what personalized promotions thought, like what it thought in order to include this in the search. So here the confidence level was medium. It noted that a lot of the lists have the same subject of romance, but quite a few had audiobooks. They associated the web format to ebook, which is interesting. Is this a lot of ebooks? Looks like, yeah, we've got some ebooks on here. Ebook, ebook, ebook. So there must be more ebooks than print books on this list. So it can just give you a little extra insight into what it's trying to match on. It nailed adults. This is obviously an adult search. And ebooks is a format where books is a super format. So what does that mean? A super format is a term that can encompass all of the different formats. Movies is a good example. Within movies, you could have DVDs, Blu-ray, streaming video, VHS. So movie is the super format, and then the individual formats are the formats. So that's what a super format means. So books is the overarching term. Ebook is a call it a sub format for today. So that's what those mean. We're working on improving this a little bit because, like, we just want to make sure like this is particularly clear. So that will be coming soon. But I think the best thing to do is look at the confidence and then look at what the taxonomies are and like the subjects. And that can tell you like, oh, maybe I need to refine what subjects I've included on my list or the metadata or whatever. But that's the debug tool. Okay. So questions. Do you want to see this in an example? Are there any other things I can show you with personalized promotions? How do we feel? I threw a lot of info at you.
Sorry to step away. I'm just curious from my, so you might have already covered what I'm going to ask, but like metrics or seeing anything about what's popping up more regularly? Is that something that's available in Biblio?
In GA4, with the reports that we have, we can actually build a dashboard specifically for personalized promotions. And it will tell you the cards and it will tell you like the context. Like, was this a contextual match? Was it a library recommended match? So we do have the data in GA4 to collect that. So we're getting there, which is nice. Yeah, good question. What other questions do y'all have?
And I'm imagining from a patron standpoint, because as we think about libraries, the way that I'm seeing this visually showing up is that it's by the keywords you're using, not connecting it to your account. If you've,
Correct.
do you have like best practices or examples of communications other libraries have used to articulate that that's how it runs?
Well, we did include this link here that says, why am I seeing this? Because that has been a concern. We don't want patrons to think like, oh, Julian, we see that you read, XYZ fiction. Like, let me serve that up to you. So you're right. This only is based on the patron search, but not necessarily, it's not the patron themselves. So we did put this content notice that says, we're showing it because it relates to the title you're viewing, your search terms or search results, but it does not track your personal info. It doesn't use your library card info to determine what to display. So hopefully patrons see that if they have questions.
Okay, yeah, and I'm just thinking from a part of our goals as being like readability and kind of the level of simplicity. Like some of these words, while I understand them and I think that they're generally accepted or understood to a simple degree, I don't know if everyone
Mhm.
has a clear understanding of that. So I think this works is what I'm trying to say, but also if there's other things that like you've seen in FAQs or people have kind of added in addition to help the public kind of feel more comfortable with.
Actually, that's really interesting because I don't know. I'm going to check EPL because out of all my libraries, they probably have the most FAQs. I don't know that I've actually seen anybody develop any FAQs around it, which is interesting. So I don't know that I've come across anybody who's done it. I know that there's another ILS that's testing this. I can't remember if it's like Vega or something. So somebody else is also doing this, which is interesting. If I come across one, I can share it with you, but I haven't seen it. Most libraries are just kind of like enable it and they just kind of let it ride.
It just sounds like an opportunity for us to be the reference point that you can people
There
about.
you go. There you go. Yeah, I think the only time that or that staff have heard patron concerns, and this probably won't surprise you considering our climate these days, is Pride Month content. Because sometimes libraries will set their Pride Month content like as library recommended content. this month we're celebrating Pride at XYZ library. And then a patron could be searching the catalog for barbecue, right? And like they see that card and then they get confused or they get upset. So some libraries have, because of their patron base, have pivoted a little bit of their selections just because of that. So that is something that we've seen with libraries. I don't want to like scare you all, but like I'm sure you are actively thinking about how patrons respond to certain types of content. And so some libraries have chosen not to promote that content as much. Unfortunately, it's just a real bummer, but that is something I have seen.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's definitely worth considering, though
Yeah.
maybe the ways in which it's promoted.
Yeah, it's just kind of like tuck that away as you all start to think about content like that, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
see if I type in LGBT, will I get anything at EPL? I will. What are they promoting to see? I mean, this one makes sense contextually. I typed in LGBTQ. So we have a staff list here. So that makes sense. So like to me, a patron will probably feel more comfortable with this one because I, as a user, am searching for this. And then we get to see this list. But yeah, that's since we just got out of Pride Month, we got some more tickets about that particularly. So just something to flag. My library down in Texas, for example, they are not promoting as much right now, which is sad for them, sad for their staff. They just kind of the nature of where they are, unfortunately. Anyways, we could talk about that forever and it's upsetting. So, what other questions can I answer for y'all?
So we should be making at at a minimum, we should be making online resource cards
I think that's a
n-
good place to
now.
start.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because those are like, oops, that's not your site. Because there we go. Because those generally don't need any extra work once they're published. Like a list card, you might end up kind of refining over and over, or an event card. But an online resource card, it's like, okay, we want to promote this genealogy card. Here's our subject headings. We're done. So you shouldn't have to do too much with it. So I would say to get yourself used to creating cards, start with the online resource cards. And I can't remember if you have some. You don't have any yet, but that's okay. We can peek at this one for an example. New York Times games. So got your image, great. Timeliness, we could mark this one as evergreen because anybody could access the New York Times games at any point in the year, whenever. We have our taxonomies. Adults make sense. There's not a related format with this one. It's not really tied to your collection, but you could also consider adding teens to this one, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have our personalized promotion section. So we have games. Let's see. I wonder if you did like a catalog search for like puzzles or crossword puzzles, like what those subject headings would be. I guess we can just do it live. Let's just give it a whirl here. Puzzles. What comes up? Puzzles, puzzles, puzzles. Puzzle. I'm just kind of curious. Puzzles, puzzled, puzzled. What is this? Is this like a history of puzzle books? Let's see. History, nonfiction. Nope, not as helpful. Let's try our first search result. It's in French. That's okay. Poetry. Nope. Wow, I picked a tricky one today. That's okay. Let's try.
But you can do by format, right? Because we have board games. So,
Oh, that's even better. Oh my gosh. Okay, board games. And board game is a smart search. This is an excellent one. Okay, so let's look at Katmai. Okay, what do we have here? Here we go. This is what we're after. So you could do a search like that. Let's see what you come up with. And then you could say, okay, I love board games here. So you'd copy it. Then you would go here. Is that a genre? It was a genre. And you would just paste in board games. And if you wanted to add another one, you'd be like, all right, puzzles and games. Super. And like that's all you have to do. Now, one thing too that you could do is like I would generally open these up in a new tab and just look at how many search results we have. 423, that's pretty good. 296, yeah, that's pretty good because like somebody could be looking up, board games. 147 card games, you don't have as many, but if this had been like 2 results, I would have said like skip, that's not enough, but you have 100 results here. So
Mm-hmm.
all of these would be great to add. We can just do it. We'll just do it for you today. How about that? A live example. Add card games. And that's it. So now we've just added 3 genre headings to your card about the New York Times games. One other thing you could add here, you might just add New York Times because if they're searching your website to see if you have the newspaper, they might be interested to know you have the games. And that's
Yeah.
probably all I would do, honestly, for this card.
And then we
Oh,
just need to add an image and
yep, that's already
yeah.
done.
Oh,
Ta-da!
it is. Oh, it is up there. Yeah.
It's the one I did. But I
Okay.
missed everything else.
Um,
So yeah,
yeah.
I'll just update this one for you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you saved me some work.
Yay! And now you got to see like a live example of how that looks. I'll pull up some of your other cards and we can talk about them too. Um, but are there other questions that y'all have? Oh, we could look at this list card for another example. List card. So I know we haven't done your list training, but here's a card all about kids choosing your own adventure. So we've got evergreen. Great. That makes sense. Card does not expire. Perfect. Audience tweens. It's a book list. Makes sense. The game ones like this are kind of tricky to figure out like a good genre for them. So I can see why this is blank. Maybe you pick action and adventure. It's probably the genre I would go with. No topic because it's not nonfiction. Now, if we wanted to promote this in personalized promotions, um, we could just see if, let me peek at this list. Let's look at some of these titles. Oops. Oh my goodness. Copy. It's even on this list. Oh yeah, like the legit choose your own adventure books here. Okay. So what do we have here? Unicorns, magic, fantasy fiction, choose your own stories. I suspect, yep. So when I looked at the subject search for choose your own stories, you have 216 search results. And this list, pretty much they should all have that same subject heading. So this list should probably show up on its own because they all have that same subject heading metadata. So the only thing that you might consider is like, are there other choose your own adventure books that kids like? Maybe like clue books, like 39 clues or something like that. That could be interesting to add as a catalog keyword search term. So now we're trying to think of different read-alikes perhaps. So they're not necessarily an exact match, but it's like the vibe. So that might be something I would add to this one just for a fun exercise in promos. All right.
Reason I, just so context, or maybe there's something to think about,
Yeah.
that you can give guidance on. Like I created this and the New York Times one because for the uh, game boards web page, I pulled these in,
Mhm.
since there's not like a personalized promotions option that I'm, maybe there is, but I wasn't thinking about that at the time. So um, how might you think or plan for lists in that context where you're going to use it as a static piece on a page, but you might also want to use it elsewhere? Is it just kind of what you did, or is there a different way to think about it?
No, I would say it's like basically what we did. It's just we know that patrons don't always spend time here on the website. So how do we let them know that you have all this stuff on the website and it's just through the cards? I feel like that's a very vague answer, but does that make sense?
Yeah, and then I guess, there's not a way to promote, no, never mind, I don't have that fully fleshed out idea, so I'll leave it there.
Well, were you gonna say like, what if there's a way to promote like this page?
Yes, and then I thought a little bit more about how that wouldn't necessarily be a page I'd want to promote because it's just more catalog stuff. So
Okay, but I let's talk about this because I think this is a good idea. So let's go look at all your pages. And let's say that patrons, let's see, let's get past your policies here. Your experience pass, how about that? That's something that you might want to promote, right?
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Okay. So you could make a custom card. And then when you create the custom card, branded experience passes. The URL is this. So you put that into the card URL, write your description. And then how would you want to promote this in personalized promotions? Maybe you just want to build general awareness for 1 month around it. So you might do searches like new books, James Patterson, I don't know. You might just really pick out super popular stuff. But then you might also go the other route, like your adventure passes a lot about history, genealogy in these two cases. So maybe a subject heading of history or this Chinese garden. Like, what other subject headings can we think about? Rocks and minerals. Maybe if people are looking up, I don't know, travel books for the Columbia River Gorge, like there's a lot of ways you could think about it. So, like, you could, if there's like pages or services that you have that you want to promote, make a custom card for it. And then it's just kind of like brainstorming, kind of like that. Like, what do I think? What would patrons look for in the catalog that I could tell them this exists? Does that make sense? It's also Friday, and now my brain is starting to fall apart, but I hope that made sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, good, good. I'm glad. All right. We got about 10 minutes left. Happy to stay on and keep brainstorming, chatting, but I'm also happy if you're happy to call it there. Up to you.
I don't know if I don't have chat so much as like examples. One of the things we've been talking about, um, and I think this aligns well with it, but how do we create promotions for um, like personas, right? So
Sure.
your baker who is also, I don't know, a homeschool parent or the
Sure.
small business entrepreneur and thinking about pages um, for them. And I don't know if there are other um, libraries who have done a good job of starting from that persona space and then building
Sort
out
of.
pages that way.
Green County is playing around with this idea. They just did a full website refresh. And it's not necessarily personas, but they have basically thought about this idea of interest-based marketing. So it's like kind of personas, but it's like the other side of personas, I guess. Yeah, it's just kind of interesting. I should talk to them more about it. So they ended up revamping their topics, especially to be more interest based. So like they actually surveyed their community and they went out to their patrons and they were like, what do you wish you saw on the website? And they were like, we wish you had more craft content. We wish you had more pet content, which is interesting because I see arts and crafts with 75 cards. Pet content, I only see 2 so far, but they literally went out and surveyed people. And then they're going to kind of start building out more pages here by interest, I think is their ultimate plan. Um, so it's an interesting question, I guess, to think about like personas. Like, I do think about personas in terms of designing pages, and then the second part of that is the content. Like if I'm building a books page and I know I have a lot of mystery folks because in my stats, I can see Lee Child books and James Patterson and David Baldacci and like whatever. Everybody's into mysteries and thrillers. Then I might lean into having my staff create more content to support that. It's like it's like all connected, I guess. It's something I think about all the time. But like a library that truly focuses on personas, I think most libraries focus more on audiences, which is like sort of a persona, but not like
Simplified.
yeah, like simplified. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Kind of like simplified. So like sort of. It's like
Okay.
it's like out there.
And
Um
I guess I'm thinking too from the, if we create these pages for a more specific persona, then within the catalog, we would think about like what would that person be interested in. So,
yeah, what's that patron searching for? What subject heading is the most relevant to them if I were to be them basically? Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe it is EPL I'm thinking of. No. I feel like I have a library who's testing this out sort of with like their online resources, which I guess is sort of EPL. Like, you know, are you interested in learning or listening or reading? But again, I think it's just another facet of a persona. Like, what do they want? I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it'll just give us more motivation to be the rock stars that you will keep referencing in the future.
Yes, I want to see some cards. I'm excited for this. So, yeah, I've enabled it for you, but we're just not seeing anything yet because you just don't have enough cards yet. And that's fine because you're still implementing. So, you'll get there. But yeah, any other questions that I can answer for y'all? Otherwise, I'll let you go. No? Cool. Well, look
No.
at us surviving Friday afternoon training. We did it.
Yay.
It was a little bit of a struggle there, but we did it. Cool. Okay, well, I will get the recording process. I'll send you the slides. Probably not today because it is 4 o'clock my time, and I think I'm
And
done with my work week.
We totally understand.
yes,
So look for this next week. And yeah, I hope you feel excited about promos. It's cool. Go
Yeah.
just poke around at other libraries and see what comes up. That's I think the best way to really get a feel for it. But yeah,
yeah.
awesome. Well, thanks everyone. I'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you,
Thank
Katie.
you.
Bye. See ya.
Bye.